Hi, I'm Caitlin,
And I'm Brianna.
and welcome to the Readers Clubhouse where we revisit our childhood favorite content. Guys, we have our second guest here today, our friend Robin. Robin, say hello.
Hi. I'm so excited to
Fantastic.
be here.
Thank you. You are. Oh my gosh! An important fact about Robin is they're the one that designed our logo and all of our little thingies that
Yes.
we put out, including all of the backgrounds and everything. So
Yes.
thank you so much
absolutely.
because that is. Brianna and I are bad at that, and so we're very
Yeah, we
grateful to
are.
have friends that are good at that. So
That's
that
not a skill that we have.
no,
It
even though
was it was such an honor to design it. And we're gonna talk more about my background later, but
Mhm.
yeah, I definitely try to incorporate a lot of elements from your childhood, a lot of elements from mine too. So
Yeah.
I think very
Yes.
fondly back of that art.
Yeah.
That little purple GameCube,
Yep.
that's
Yeah.
not technically a GameCube, it's just GameCube shaped for copyright reasons.
Yes, thank you for not
We-
getting us in trouble.
It's a game box.
It's a game box. Love it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Also,
It is box
just another
shaped.
fun fact is we've known you for
So long.
17 years?
It's
18 years?
something like that, yeah.
I think. Just some fun
I would
facts.
say at least half my life.
Yeah.
I am 30. I am
Yeah.
30.
Because
Yeah.
I met your sister
Yes.
in 6th grade, I think, when I was in
Yeah.
6th grade. So that's crazy.
And we
I don't feel like you meet her as much as she meteorite crashes into your life.
It's
so
so true. We gotta get her on the podcast. What if she'd be willing to do something?
Yeah. It would it would
Bizarre.
have been funny to have her on for the Emmathon.
I mean, yeah, actually, dang. That is a missed opportunity.
yeah. We did
It's not
mention
Yeah, that's true.
mention her in that, so
You did mention her in that. No, I remember
Yes.
I remember hearing the mention about her, but I mean, it's not like there's not other things with the name Emma in
Yeah.
them.
It's true. That's true. All right. Brianna, I think you have a question for us today.
yes. So so start us off. We all have lived in apartments. Robin, you've recently purchased a house with your spouse.
Woo!
That
I
house and
certainly
spouse.
have.
Yes. So we all have had crazy household things happen, or plumbing issues or something like that. We'll start with you first, Robin, because I know you have some very recent ones. What's one thing that's crazy happened to you that you've had to deal with that's a house issue or just your living space issue?
Yeah, so we recently had to have a couple different handymen come out. Well, we're in the Pacific Northwest, and Washington State recently had at least the coast area had this big old storm hit us,
Yeah.
and there was some cool lightning and whatever, and that was really fun. And I thought that that was kind of the whole night. That was our first big storm in this house, so we were kind of walking around seeing is there any unexpected roof leaks that we didn't know about before, and there been nothing like that. So we're like, oh, cool. We're good. Our house is over 100 years old, by the way. So that's another element to this. And one of the things that drew us to this house is this cute little tree that there's a deck built around this tree, and there's a
cool.
bench even around the tree coming through the deck. And we just really loved it. And we were pretty sure the tree was dead when we bought the house, because when we first looked at it, it was dead of winter. And it was just a really old tree, and we're like, well, we'll kind of know in the springtime. And sure enough, we started to see some, there was one branch that had little buds on it. So we're like, maybe it's not as dead as we thought. And we were kind of hopeful for it. And the next morning, we went out after the storm, and Nathan, my husband, actually was the one that caught it, but he came and told me, he's like, hey, the tree fell over. And we're like, no.
Oh no.
Yeah, so the tree fell over. And again,
Yeah.
it was through the deck. And so not only did it fall over, but it was leaning on our fence posts and stuff. Really, and it was rough. And so we had to, and it's heavy. It was so much heavier than we thought. Even though it was a short tree, it was just really dense because it was so old. So 80 billion different little things that have to happen after. We have to buy a chainsaw. It's very hard to buy a chainsaw, which is a good thing. I am not opposed to chainsaw regulations. But still, it was like a big old process to get this chainsaw, and Nathan watched 800 YouTube videos to train himself how to use it, thank God.
Yep.
And then started to cut the tree apart, which was very sad, but we had to do it.
Yeah.
Um, especially because like you can look under and see the roots, it was dead, right? And as he's cutting the tree open, behold, he uncovers a little pus pocket of ants.
Yeah.
There are ants!
That is
There are
terrible.
carpenter ants in the tree, which is part of the reason why
Ooh.
it died.
Yeah.
But then we had to call an exterminator because the carpenter ants are infesting the tree that is 10 feet away from our 100-year-old house. Because even though
Yeah.
carpenter ants aren't like termites, they like to eat old wood. Well, our house is made of old wood. So
Yeah.
so then we had to have an exterminator come and spray. So it's been a lot. It's been a lot lately. But we're getting through it,
Yeah.
And
One
the
day at a
ants are,
time.
and that's what's important.
Yeah.
That's all that matters is that we get through it and that the ants don't. So
Yeah.
I mean, so
Yeah.
true. Yes.
Death to ants.
Just
Well, here I am, designing a video game right now, and this is all very hush hush. I can't really talk about the game a lot that I'm designing because it's very early in the process, but like there is a greenhouse and there's a bunch of cool bugs in this greenhouse. And I was literally researching cool bugs when like the exterminator showed up to kill all the ants.
Oh,
Ah! That was a moral
yikes.
dilemma for me. Yeah. So that's been my recent escapade in having a handyman come to our house.
Yeah.
Escapade. Anyway.
Antscapade.
Antscapade.
Wow.
Thank you. I'll be here all
Oh
night.
my gosh. Of course. Caitlin, do you have anything?
Yeah, I mean, I've moved like every year basically since I graduated from high school, which is 10 years
Ugh.
now. As of this year.
Ugh.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been quite a long time. But I think probably one of my worst experiences, and this was multifaceted, was in 2022. I was in England. I was moving into a new flat with my friend, and I don't remember enough if you remember all the chaos with this, but well, I mean, yeah, no. Do the second story. We basically we'd looked at the flat, there was all the stuff that needed to be fixed, and we were promised by the people, the letting agents, like, okay, all this stuff is going to be fixed. I was actually looking through my pictures trying to remember what all it was, because I remember we had to take pictures as evidence for it. But I think my roommate had taken the majority of the pictures because I only have a handful of them on here. But yeah,
Was this when you were with Nikki?
Yeah.
Or was this when you were
okay with Nikki? Because there was other chaos with my first flatmate. Like literally living in England is a wild time, let me tell you. But so there's all these things that were needing to be done before we moved in. We were gone for 2 weeks because we went on holiday with some friends, and then like she was gone and it was just we weren't around for 2 weeks. So then we come back and literally nothing has been done during the time we looked at the flat and said like, okay, yeah, we'll take it as long as these things are done. So things like the pictures I have are my shower head, I don't know, I mean, this is an audio podcast, but there's the like metal pole, there's this piece that the shower head is supposed to stick into, and then there's the actual shower head itself. The piece it's supposed to stick into was not properly screwed on, and this part that is supposed to be like difficult to turn to change the angle of the shower head was just loose, and there's no way to tighten it, or at least not a way that I knew how to tighten it.
Yeah.
Like the toilet seats in both bathrooms were broken. The towel drying rack was off from the wall, so it wasn't fully connected in. The couch that we had in there was like, there's all this damage on the underside of the couch that was in there, as well as there was mold on the walls. And then when we first arrived, the water wasn't on. So we moved into the flat and like we had no access to water because they hadn't turned the water on.
Yeah.
And so and that wasn't everything. I don't remember everything that was wrong. But basically we had to call and say like, nothing happened that you guys said was going to happen. You need to get stuff done now. And to make it even better is the tradesman that came in was this older guy, probably in his 50s or something like that, and his like youngest son, who was probably our age, like mid to early 20s or whatever. And just really kind people. But there was some point where he was just literally like, very polite. We offer a cup of tea and, make a cup of tea. And he just sits down on the couch and starts telling like, this is all the stuff that needs to happen. And I'm just like, why are you sitting on the couch? Like, you're here for work. You should not be this casual. And start asking us if we were like single. And I'm like,
No.
no. But this is the handyman that or the contractor. It was the contractor that our letting agents used. So they came around quite often to fix the things. Also, with the paint, sorry, with the mold that was on the walls, because we had an outward facing flat and like our living room was just out to the nature, I guess. Had mold growing on it from condensation. And instead of like whatever they did, they just covered the wall with paint. There was apparently mold resistant paint,
Yeah.
but just covered it. So anyway, that was what happened. It was a fun time. It wasn't actually. It was really stressful for both me and Nikki, and we were not enjoying
Yeah.
ourselves. And she ended up having to stay for a whole extra month in the flat after I left, and that was a whole thing. So
Yeah.
I was just gonna say, I love that when you're talking about all the things wrong with it, the first thing you do is hyper focus on the fact that the shower head holder thing isn't maybe 100% perfect. And then you start to like, go, by the way, there was mold. By the way, we
Yeah.
didn't have water. And those are the last two things you mentioned.
I
The
mean,
most important things are at the bottom of the list.
it was my bathroom, and I tried to shower, and it wouldn't. It was just dangling, and I was like, I don't want it to dangle. I need it to stand up so I can shower.
But I feel like I would notice the water first.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean, you're so
that's
right, but I don't know. My priorities
no,
are
it's good. That's
wackadoodle doo.
good. That's good.
Ugh,
Brianna, what
that's
about you?
hilarious. So house in Everett
Mm,
that
I
you
have to
lived
bleep
in.
that out, Brianna.
What?
You
We
doxed
don't,
yourself.
none of us live in that city.
I know, but also what I love is from the very beginning we were like we're gonna be very vague about where we live, and it has literally just narrowed down
Okay,
the
I
further
will
we've
say
gotten.
I am not the only one that has done that.
I doxed my age. I didn't dox my location.
Well, I am not living in that city.
Anyway, moving
Okay,
on.
moving on. So, house that we lived in with me for a while and stuff,
Yes,
and then also one of our other friends, and at some
two of
point
our other
another friend
friends.
lived with us and
Oh,
stuff.
yeah.
And so the thing was though, you both had like you've been there also, Robin, so you know this. But for our listeners, it was a repurposed two-story house that was changed into a split level apartments and everything. So lots of stuff with that. The upper one was originally only supposed to have this older lady and her nephew, and then eventually the nephew's whole family moved in there, and there's like five people up there and multiple animals
Ridiculous.
and stuff. Ridiculous. Lots of other stuff I could complain about with all of that. But the major part with it is the plumbing
Mm.
was all connected. And when stuff got flushed or like done up there, it had to go all the way through ours also. I think if I remember correctly how this goes and stuff. That apartment had terrible issues with like
Hmm.
flooding and everything and stuff. And one of the times, oh my God, it was so bad. And this happened I think more than once and everything. I had run the dishwasher, and
Mm.
because of the stuff, and I don't even remember how it all worked and everything, running the dishwasher made the sink flood
Oh
and
my
then
gosh,
spill out
yes.
into the whole apartment.
I forgot about that.
And the other thing was, it could have been worse. The other thing is it was some greasy water
Hmm.
because part of what had blocked it up was grease being like done through the disposal and stuff.
Yeah.
So it was gross. And so like I still have a bookcase from there, like that we'd had while I was there that I had gotten, and it's like got like a little bit of water damage on it and stuff.
Yeah.
Still works. But so like that's one of the times and having to come fix it. Nothing ever really
Hmm.
got fixed very well, honestly. It was a terrible place. But it was cheap and
But I
XYZ and everything. This is
and
the beginning of
also
the pandemic at the time too.
yeah.
So
Mhm.
yeah, it was
Also the
wild
mold in
times.
that place was pretty bad too.
Yeah, it was really bad. And it was small too, is the other
Hmm.
big thing.
Hmm.
So we had multiple animals, multiple people,
Hmm.
and not great conditions and stuff.
Yeah.
So, uh, that was not fun. That is like one of the ones I will always remember is coming
Yeah.
home to the whole. I was literally not gone for very long because I'd run off to, like I did run the dishwasher, then ran out to do an errand or something like that,
Hmm.
and then came back and I was like, oh my God, and it was just bad. It was so bad.
Yeah.
So yeah, not
Yeah.
fun,
I forgot about
but
that.
yeah, it one of those things that I'll always remember and stuff. But yeah, so interesting stuff about living in a home, and some of it had to do with just like normal house stuff, some of it had to do with plumbing. But to tie it in to what we're talking about today, it's specifically a couple of reasons why we also asked our friend Robin here is we're going to talk about the video game. This is our first video game episode,
Heyo.
guys.
Bow,
Yeah.
bow, bow, bow.
Today we are going to talk about Paper Mario and the Thousand Year Door. Before we get
Ooh.
too much further into that, I do want to go a little bit deeper into who Robin is. So, um, do we want to do you kind of give like a quick lowdown, Robin, about like what it is you do and that kind of a thing to start off?
Yeah, yeah. So, hi everybody. I'm super excited to be here. A little bit about myself. I've been working in the games industry for about 2.5 years now.
Yeah,
I started, I think it was October 2022.
yeah.
And I got into games because every time I say I work in games, people are like, how? How'd you do it? And you know what? It's so hard to break in, especially right now. Like it's only gotten worse, to be
Yeah.
completely fair. But I got my start in the games industry by doing an MFA in creative writing first.
Mm.
And during my MFA, I've always loved comics. I've always loved video games. From like day one, I feel like I was raised with like a 64 and a lot of other stuff
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
badly played them, not understanding how how to do just loving to play as Mario and jump through paintings and then
Hmm.
try to talk to the Goombas and then get injured and think that's great. Like and drop the little penguin baby off the cliff, right?
Oh
As we
yeah.
do. Um, I've always loved games and cartoons and comics and all this stuff, right? And I remember being in my MFA and I don't want to be like I wasn't like the other writers, but I guess like
Mm.
I would often turn in stories. I remember having like classmates write beautiful stories about so many different a lot of like realistic fiction, essay kind of analysis, that amazing, great stuff like that. And then I remember turning in, this was like my final quarter, final project for like one class. I turned in a Scooby-Doo fan fiction
Amazing.
and it was treated like with full respect. And actually one classmate told me it felt like if David Lynch directed Scooby-Doo. So I was like, awesome.
Wow.
That's like that was what I was going for. But that being said, I often got like from other classmates like, wow, like I don't even know how to start with your stuff because it's so different. And I was trying to make an MFA like in writing do something different probably than. But I remember being in a meeting with a professor and she's like, "Oh, you like, do you really like comics? Do you like video games? You can write video games for a living." And it like never occurred to me that that was like a job that
Yeah.
like there were people that write video games and I was like, "Oh my God." So I did a pivot, did my thesis as a video game and I was the first person in my program to do it. And to be clear, there's a ton of MFAs that you can do specifically in game design and stuff. But
Yeah.
just in my individual small program, no one had ever turned in a video game for a thesis. So,
Mhm.
That's
um,
cool.
but that was kind of how I got started. I fell in love with it and then ended up finding an indie studio, and started working with them. And I love it. It's just had a game released. It's a Dino Western.
Yeah.
Fun.
Um, Currently working on a game with anthropomorphic animals, and it's like in a fantasy setting. The main character's a cat. He's based off of my cat, Oliver. So
Oh.
yeah, so I have a lifelong love of video games, and I'm very happy to be working in the field. And yeah, that kind
Yeah.
of this game in particular is one I am so exceptionally excited to talk about because I think it does definitely make my top five
Mm.
list of video games, just out of the infinite numbers of ones that I've played before.
Yeah.
Wow. That's cool.
All right, so we're gonna get into the meat of this, and we're gonna give some stats like we like to do with all of our stuff. It's a little bit different, but not too much this time, because again, we're talking about a video game. And to reiterate, we were talking about Paper Mario and the Thousand Year Door. Now, Paper Mario is a series, so there's a couple different games, and this isn't the first one in the series, it's the
Hmm.
second one, if I remember correctly. I actually have vague memories of playing the first one at our grandparents' place when they had like a Super Nintendo or whatever,
Hmm.
or
I think they had
It
an
was an
N64.
N64. It
Yeah.
was an N64, thank you. And I played like a part of it, but didn't get very far. And I just remember liking the vibe of it. But I
Hmm.
had never played uh this one, which is wild because we had a GameCube. But the original
Hmm.
version of Paper Mario and the Thousand Year Door came out on GameCube on July 2004. So this game was like over 20 years ago it came out
This game
now
is
at this point.
able to drink alcohol in the United
Yeah,
States.
this is a legal adult an age. So
Wild.
that is the original game. Something many of you already maybe know this, some of you may not. It actually had a re-release literally last year, so in
Hmm.
2024, May 24, 2024 specifically, it was re-released on the Switch in a kind of remastered way, so there was some differences between it, all that kind of stuff. So we're gonna get
Hmm.
more into that in a little bit about that specifically, but just so everybody knows, we are talking mainly about the new game, but also just both the games as a whole. So that's kind of the focus on that. The author slash publisher slash developer is Nintendo. They're the people who created Mario, and that's all of their games are they're the ones that always put out his games and everything.
Hmm.
So that is who made it. The genre, it's actually a turn-based RPG, which isn't always the case with Mario games. There's
Hmm.
literally a Mario RPG, I think is what it's called. There's a specific game, but this one is still that, but it's its own distinct thing because it's the Paper Mario series.
Hmm.
And then it is rated E for everyone. So anybody can play this. It has a lot of really like fun little stuff in it that kids will think are funny, but also adults will. And I have played the newer version up to a certain point, just to clarify for everybody. I didn't finish it. So I don't know how it ends exactly. I could look it up and stuff, but
And I have
I
never
just
played either version. So
Caitlin has not played either. I don't even
I
think you
know.
ever played the OG version either. That
No,
do you remember doing that? Yeah. So Caitlin has no frame of reference for Paper Mario.
literally none.
So it's a little like it's kind of funny actually with that. So
My first Mario game
mm,
that I actively remember, I believe, was Super Mario Galaxy on the Wii.
yes.
And I
That is
still
a
have
gorgeous game.
I have
Yeah,
a very deep love, and I'm very sad that I can't play it because I have no idea, like the original. Because I know they released a newer Super Mario Galaxy 2 or whatever, but I
It's all right. It's the original Mario Galaxy, I think it got like Game of the Year, even if it was just
mm,
Nintendo's Game of the Year. It got
it
a
was real
Game of the
good.
Year somewhere.
yeah.
It definitely earned it. And it was interesting because I remember when it was announced, I remember reading articles, people being afraid that it would be like old, just Mario drifting in
Mm,
space, but it very much
Uh,
evoked Super Mario 64
yeah.
feelings of like you're running around this green castle jumping in paintings. In
Hmm.
this one, you're running around to this fun spaceship that slowly gets
Yep.
fixed up. And when it gets
yeah.
fixed up, more music is integrated in the
Yeah.
soundtrack.
Yep.
It lights up and there's more characters and it's very full of life. And then you get to
Yep.
go to all these different fun little planets.
Yep.
It's interesting because that one felt very reminiscent of
Hmm.
Super Mario 64. The
Yeah.
Paper Mario series almost makes sense to think of as a completely different
Oh yeah.
game series. It feels very like it's much more in lines with other types of turn-based RPGs, just in the
Hmm.
overall structure and feel of it,
Yeah.
but reskinned Mario, but there's such a huge depth of ways that the people that made Paper Mario are like aware of the IP and are doing nods to it, but also doing something completely new and totally different feeling
That's really
Yeah.
than
cool.
standard Mario games. And I think that's one of the things that I'm consistently drawn to this series. And on it, not to be like a, downer, but like Paper Mario Thousand Year Door is my all-time favorite of the entire Paper Mario series. I felt like Super Paper Mario, that was like the sequel to this one. I felt like it was
Yeah.
nice, but there was a couple things that they changed that just like it's not the turn-based. Like
Yeah.
and just other things that they changed about it that took out some key elements I'll talk about a bit later. And then
Yeah.
I feel like since then it's kind of been sort of a downward. Like I played
Mm.
Origami King and I kind of hated it. I hate played it the
I
whole
remember you
time.
telling me about that, yeah.
Yeah, no, I told you about we had a whole thing,
Yeah.
I probably a
You were
multi-hour
very
conversation
disappointed.
about how angry that game made me. But
Oh yeah.
I think it's because of the precedent Paper Mario Thousand Year Door
Yeah.
set for me
Yeah.
that I don't only compare other Mario games to it, I compare other games in general to
Yeah.
this game.
Wow. Okay.
Like, yeah, yeah, like when
Yeah.
I am writing characters, when I'm trying to do stuff that feels very stylized and fun, I literally think back to this game and I'm like, well, they hit some of these things in ways that I just haven't seen since.
Mm.
Mm.
And that I try to like I don't know if emulate's the right word, but more of like I'm just consistently inspired by. It's like a foundational work for me, I guess is a good way to
Yeah.
explain it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's actually
I
really cool.
completely get what you mean, yeah. So really quickly, we're gonna do a brief sort of summary. This is not gonna be like my normal summary, guys, because I am not going to explain the whole plot of this game. Because part of it is a lot of the books what we usually do are like books that have been out for 20 plus years.
Mm.
So having a general summary, if you're listening to the podcast, you're kind of like we're talking about spoilers and everything. This one, it's gonna be a little bit less about like us talking about spoilers. Also, the game, like the remake came out pretty recently, so go play the game if you want to like figure out how it ends
True.
and stuff like that. Yeah. But very brief summary about this. This game starts off with kind of this mystery that Mario and Peach get pulled into, and they end up in this town after getting this special map or whatever that pulls them into this town called it's Rogueport, right? Is that the right word?
Rogueport, yeah.
Rogueport, yeah.
Rogueport is like a real pirate town that gets mentioned in other like One Piece has Rogueport. That's really well known.
Oh,
Yes, and it
I totally forgot about that. Yeah.
well, Rogueport in One Piece is where Gold Roger was executed. And when you go into Rogueport in
Oh,
Paper Mario, there's
yes.
literally a noose in the town square. Like,
I
but
never
that's
made that
because it's
connection.
like known to be that spot in like pirate media.
Okay. That makes so much sense. I love that. Because that's
Wow.
like the vibe of this whole town is it's very much like criminals, like it's a downtrodden kind of a thing. There's a lot of stuff going on in that town. But so Mario and Peach get there along with old Toad and Toads involved in everything, and lots of shenanigans and stuff. So they're there. Peach gets kidnapped, but surprise,
Shock.
surprise, it's
Surprise,
not by
surprise.
Bowser. Surprise,
What?
surprise, it's not Bowser doing it this time. It's these guys like X-Nauts, I think is what they're called.
Yes,
Yeah,
X-Nauts.
X-Nauts, and they're trying to find the Thousand Year Door. And to find the Thousand Year Door, you have to find these seven crystal stars or something like that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So
It's
you're
they're specifically trying to I think they know where the door is. They're specifically trying to open it.
that's what it
And the
was.
Thousand Year Door has not been opened in 1,000 years. I think it's that the seal is weakening now that 1,000 years has
Of
passed, and if you have
course.
all the stars, you can open the door. And no one knows exactly what's behind the
Yeah,
door.
Can I ask
true.
a question as someone who quite literally has no idea what this game is about at all?
Yeah.
Why did they kidnap Peach?
She has the map
Yeah.
to the
She's the map
stars.
to the
She has
stars.
the map. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And something you find out by playing the game is that the map literally like points to the location of the star. And so as you like unlock, like as you get a star, the map itself will like auto-populate with like the next, like the map itself has like a living
Yeah.
element
Okay.
to it that kind of
Okay.
fills in, which is so fun. And the thing that I'm probably going to do in my current game. I'm
That's
not even
cool.
joking. My supervisor suggested it. It wasn't even me. And I was like, whoa. Um,
You're like, yes.
yeah, I'll totally do that. Yeah, definitely. But like, so the point is that Peach ends up being able to eventually communicate with Mario. She'll send him
Yeah.
emails,
Mm.
and that's like a whole cute thing. And she's
Emails?
Yeah.
one of the first.
Yeah.
Yes, it's very cute because it's early 2000s when this game came out. So there's like he has a little handheld device that can get emails, and they like have a whole bit of dialogue where they explain what this is to you.
Yep.
because back then, probably a huge portion of people, like the idea that you had a handheld device for emails was just wild. So,
Oh
um,
my goodness.
no, yeah, but now it's just very cute. Probably there's a whole batch of children that don't even know what an email is. So it's like, okay, yeah, like we've come full circle. But she explains like, oh, the X-Nauts have a crystal star. So the idea is that eventually, if and that also you if they have a crystal star, you probably don't want them to get the other one. So
Mm.
Mario's trying to
Yeah.
amass as much crystal stars as possible. And if he eventually gets enough crystal stars, the map will point to wherever Peach is.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that's kind of like the general vibe of what's going on. Of course, Mario goes on his journey to save the princess because that's like the basis for most of his adventures in most of the games. And we also do get to see Bowser, but my favorite part about that whole bit is Bowser is always like a step behind Mario in this game. Like he's running through these places that Mario's already been to, and he causes his own sort of chaos in it. But he also is trying to save Peach, I think. Is that? Yeah. So he's trying to save
Okay, that's
Peach,
actually kind of
trying
cool.
to. It is. And I do. It kind of in this one, Bowser's still like kind of a bad guy and stuff, but it leans a little bit more into like the fandom's take on Bowser in a lot of ways of him just being kind of big and dumb and actually kind of in love with Peach and stuff, and not as much a bad guy, but he still is sort of bad guy-ish
I
in
have an
all of this.
important
Same
question.
background. Yes.
Is Bowser a himbo?
Mm,
No,
No.
no, because the triangle of himbo is big, respects women, and what was the
Oh,
other thing? Dumb? That's what it
dumb.
was. Yeah.
He is
So
really dumb.
he
He
is
is
really
really dumb
dumb
in this game.
and he's really big,
he
but
doesn't respect women.
his respect
I
women is kind of a little bit weak at times.
say a lot of times himbo kind of also overlaps with golden retriever
Mm,
boyfriends of
mm.
like
Yes.
and
Yeah.
and Bowser's too much of a grump to
Okay,
Yes.
be
gotcha.
He is
and
yeah, he can be like sort it's like there's a Venn diagram or something somebody had made at one point, but he's like adjacent, like he's like t like if we changed his personality a little bit more and stuff, he would probably fit it, but Bowser's more on the grump side, like Robin's saying.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
a quick note too about Bowser and also Peaches
Mm.
for like how they appear in this game
Oh
is
yeah.
is also very very new
Hmm.
um to Mario's as a series at that time. I've seen it done since, but not quite like this. And also,
Mhm.
like, this was the one that kind of did it first, as far as I
Yeah.
know. I'm pretty sure it's the one that did it first. So when you get the first crystal star, right? And you kind of have like the game's chunked into chapters, a lot like other Mario games have like worlds. So it's kind of like you wrapped
Yeah.
up this section, and that feels very satisfying, both as like a player, like it makes the game feel more manageable.
Mm.
Um, but also even like just a nod to Mario, like with Mario being chunked up into these worlds. So you get your first crystal star and it wraps up and has this kind of like fun book sort of like UI,
That's right.
Oh,
or
cool.
not UI, but like kind of cutscene animation thing that they do that feels very satisfying. You're closing a chapter, you're going to the next. And then you suddenly are Peach, and you are Peach, and you are in this like spacey, sci-fi type of like
Yeah.
tech hideout with the X-Nauts, and you get to play as Peach, and
Mm.
it's like whoa, and you're like you're navigating around in her like little bunker area, and suddenly the doors start unlocking, and you're like going through this base, and you're like, what's happening? You like
That's
cross over
cool.
this hallway you go into, and it's the computer the base's computer, which is his name is Tech, and
Mm.
he notices Peach and he's confused by her. He feels different when he looks at her. And Peach puts it apart like immediately. She's like, "Are you in love with me?" But no, that can't be possible. But like he
I
Oh
ends up
my
love how
striking a
she
deal with her.
immediately goes to that.
He's like, love, this isn't in my database. What is love? I don't understand. And he's like, there's
Love.
nothing, there's nothing I can't know. I have to be the best computer ever in existence, ever. And he's like, so they strike a deal, right? Where he's like, you teach me what love means, and I will allow you to send one email on occasion. And so she starts doing like little lessons with Tech and then she sends Mario an email. And so like these are these
Oh, okay.
blips, and then you
Yeah.
send it. So then when you eventually are playing as Mario again, you'll get like a little bit through the next adventure, like the next part, and then you'll get like a little beep pager and you'll pull it up and it's the email from Peach and she's
Yep.
giving you a bit of like insider
Wow.
info that she just learned from her situation. And so that I
Yeah.
thought was a very cute crossover. And also like on that I love that it even though she's damseled,
Hmm.
and this
Yeah.
always happens to Peach, she actually plays like a very important role in her own rescue.
Yes.
Yeah.
Um, by giving like Mario intel on the inside. Like without her intel, like I don't think that Mario would have gotten where he like there's a lot of stuff. Yeah, Mario actually he doesn't talk in the entire game. That's another
He
thing.
does that. Yeah.
He makes little
He's
voice noises.
he's
Right.
very Link coded in
Hmm.
this with that and stuff.
Yes, it's
Yeah.
so cute. But like so I can't really say necessarily what's on his mind or if he would have made it there regardless, maybe. But
Yeah.
like I feel like us as a player, we wouldn't have known why we're doing
Yeah.
whatever we're doing.
Yeah.
And then on Bowser's note, after you play as Peach briefly, you then play as Bowser briefly. And when you
Hmm.
play as Bowser briefly, you see him in the previous area that Mario was at. So
That's
once you're
so
on the
cool.
second location, yeah, it's so cool. And when you play as Bowser, like you can breathe fire, like some
Yeah.
other stuff. And you can see him talking to his minions and they have like water cooler conversations about how much they hate their boss, that kind
Yep.
of stuff. Like it's really funny. And then that's all important to note in that Super Paper Mario, the game after this,
Yeah.
you actually rotate between Mario, Peach, Luigi, and Bowser.
Oh,
Oh,
okay.
cool.
You get to swap between those four characters. They're like
Okay.
you
Your
know,
party or whatever.
kind of, yeah, it's interesting. When we can talk more about the differences between that one and the first game later, but that was kind of them sort of planting the seed is that you get to
Hmm.
play for these characters for like maybe like 10 minutes,
Yeah.
Hmm.
these very short sequences, and then you are back into the main storyline with Mario. But it was so fun to see with Peach and a bit of Intel, and then
Yeah.
with Bowser, and it's kind of funny. Like at one point, you're doing like a classic Mario style side scroller, but as Bowser, and so you are
Yeah.
like blowing apart things by breathing fire. And
That's so
like,
cool.
and it's so cool. It's really, really, again, it feels like the people that made this grew up playing Mario and just really,
Yeah.
really loved it.
Yeah, it
Absolutely
does get
loved
that
it,
vibe.
but still weren't afraid to do something new with it. And that
Hmm.
I think is
Yeah.
such a hard balance because usually
Yeah.
sometimes people respect the media so much they get choice paralysis they want to try to recreate. And you can't. You have
Hmm.
to create within the time period that you exist.
Yeah.
So,
Absolutely.
It's
yeah.
also
Yeah.
really fascinating to me how it's not necessarily universal, but how often you can tell when people loved the game they created
Yeah.
Yeah.
and the choices they made to make the game, the story choices, the animation choices, whatever it is, the mechanics even. Like you can just tell they love the game versus games that are put out that you're like, you put this out to make money off of it. And
Yeah.
you can tell the difference in heart and just in player experience between
Yeah.
and I'm somebody who's not in the gaming industry. I'm not into really the story like the writing industry. I'm not in an industry basically, but as someone who
Yeah.
consumes things, I'm like, man, you can really tell when the people who are creating something love it and when they don't. And I think it's
Yeah.
really it says something about how much more it means when someone creates something that they actually truly love versus I'm creating this to make money
Yeah.
because I'm in the industry and
Yeah.
I need to make a buck. So,
Which is funny because sometimes like Paper Mario was made by Nintendo, who
mhm,
many people have many feelings about Nintendo and stuff.
absolutely.
Yeah, they are not perfect, but they are very nostalgic because they've been around for a long time, and
Hmm.
Mario's been around for a long time. And but like it's interesting looking at bigger industries because I love indie games. Some of my most favorite video games were indie games, and they were made by
Yeah.
smaller studios, sometimes even one person,
Hmm.
and they're
Shout out to
just like
Stardew Valley.
Stardew Valley, Undertale, that like those kinds of games and stuff really kind of hit you. But then every once in a while in a bigger industry, they will give you a game like Paper Mario and a Thousand Year Door, where this team really cared about this
Hmm.
like specific character or like thing that they were doing and everything. And it's very easy to tell even sometimes in those like entertainment industries like
Mhm.
video games, they still will have passionate people be involved with things and stuff. And again, unfortunately, they still like fall like kind of like going into what you were saying very briefly, Robin, about like the other Paper Mario games and like kind of subsequent after that and stuff, how it just kind of felt didn't feel as quite that. And it may not always, it's like we don't know what actually went on behind the scenes or what
Mhm.
choices were made, but it's just like kind of like you don't feel it as much even within the same series of games and stuff.
Mhm.
So it's very
Absolutely.
interesting.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and speaking on that a little bit, so even in my own studio, I work at Haiku Games, and we have like our most established IP is the Detective Kate series. We've got, more than a dozen games under that
Mhm.
IP. And I
Yeah.
actually worked on one of them. It was called Vanishing Act, and it was about magicians and identity fraud. Um, and it's interesting because I think everybody at the company, well, maybe one person, pretty much everybody at the company right now has worked on a Kate game.
Mm.
Yeah.
Um, and I think that's one of those interesting things when you have an IP that is like really big, it's actually pretty common to have a lot of different people come onto that project at some point or
Yeah.
another. And I think like in some ways that can make it more rich or interesting. In some ways that can also make it more muddled. I think a good example
Yeah.
of a series that does this well for the most part is Legend of Zelda.
Yeah.
Um, I feel like every Legend of Zelda game feels like a very different experience.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
part of what's so fun. And I feel like, there's been a lot of times where it's like Wind Waker coming out shortly
Yeah.
around the same time, which is like funny cartoon new style, shortly around this time is the moodiest game ever called Twilight Princess
Yeah.
that literally has you be a wolf.
The
Yeah.
best game
Oh my
ever, I hear
God.
you saying.
I love that game so much. It came out right when I was in my angsty seventh
Yes.
grade
Yeah.
Yeah.
self. I felt, and Twilight the Vampire series was like peaking at that time too. It was like a really
Yeah.
great moment in history for things named after Twilight. And
Ugh.
also wolves.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
No, don't
um
combine those things for me and my brain. They need to be
no, you see
separate. They need to be
no,
on
you
separate
see you see
sides.
Twilight, the book series, speaking as, a writer that has an MFA, is obviously one of the best things that has ever happened to literature. All 119,000 words of it. Um,
By the way, people, Robin frequents the what's it called? Twilight blank post. As we don't swear in this podcast, but meme sort of thing on Facebook. That is one of Robin's favorite pages.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I've been trying to not use a lot of social media, like
Yes.
Facebook, especially
Yeah.
lately, because I feel like Facebook's only gotten worse. But
That's so true.
that was one of
True.
the things that kept me on Facebook for as long as I was,
Yeah.
that group,
Yep.
because it's horrible. Um, and often where I would get some of the news the fastest.
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah.
Why is that with the
There,
like?
I see it still every once in a while when I'm going through my book groups on there. It'll like because I followed it because of you, and I'll see things. I'm like, wait, what happened? And I'm like, this is about some political stuff that is going down. I don't know why this is the first place that I've heard of this. And so,
I learned about the Pope dying on a meme posting group on Reddit.
yes, I learned about the Pope dying thanks to TikTok. Yeah,
Yeah, no, I learned about it and then the articles came out, an
yeah,
hour or two later, as that often is, but it's just
yep,
funny how the
it is.
memes, they're already
The
there, they're at it.
memes,
That's
they're the
funny because
quickest.
I learned the Pope died from a pastor who posted about it on Instagram. So I was talking about a letter the Pope wrote to this group of pastors at a conference.
Mm.
And I was like, wait, why are we talking about the Pope again? And then I pulled up Google and the first article was about Pope Francis dying, and I was like, wackadoodle do. I used to have a signed poster of him in my bedroom. Fun
I
facts.
I
forgot
always
about
love
that.
anytime, that's really funny.
I
Yeah.
got it.
I wait, hold up. Like let's explain
Um,
what.
my my friend went to Croatia because her family's from Croatia, and I mentioned because he became the Pope when I was like in middle school or high school or something like that, and I just I thought he was a cool guy at the time, and so I was like, yeah, I just love Pope Francis, blah blah blah, and so she saw in Croatia, which is a heavily Catholic nation, a generic poster of Pope Francis that had been signed, and it's a mass printed thing.
Yep.
And she bought it for me and brought it home with her from Croatia to give to me as a present. And then my dad got me a book about Pope Francis's life, like one of those like biography books with pictures and descriptions and things like that about the Pope. And I was like, I don't love him that much. I just think he was a cool guy. But
This
okay.
is like I call it like frog person theory.
Yeah.
Where like because like someone will get you like a little frog figurine and you're like, oh, that's cute, and you put it on your desk, and then someone like sees that it's on your desk, and then they're like, oh, you like frogs, and then they get you another frog, like a calendar, and then you're
Yep.
and once you got into the calendar territory, you're gone, like
And then
and then suddenly you have Frog House, and then you have
yep.
to tell people, I actually don't think I mean they're all right. I personally love frogs, but like more of like this person,
No frog slander here.
I guess I like frogs, but I don't know if I'm ready to commit to this level of froggery,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
yeah, and that
Yeah.
that's what my mom has a chicken kitchen,
Mm-hmm.
and
Hmm.
actually one of my tattoo artists, her mom had
Oh,
a pig
cute.
kitchen. We talked about that, and that was
Oh,
I had
that's
gotten
adorable.
we did a flash event for Friday the 13th, and I had gotten a flying pig from her, and so we had a
Yeah.
Nice.
conversation about our mom's animal kitchens.
Yeah.
And
I once got an entire Christmas. All of my presents were Duck
Uh,
Dynasty presents
yep.
because my dad and I watched like a season of Duck Dynasty and we would joke about it and laugh about it. And for some reason, our parents were
that's the
just
thing that
like,
stuck out. Oh,
I got a literal like throw blanket with Uncle Si's face
Yep.
on it.
Yeah.
horrible.
Yeah, it wasn't
That's
great.
no.
It wasn't. No, like,
And
you know,
now you're Pope Lady.
and I think I was Pope Lady before. No, no, yeah, no, that was before Duck Dynasty. Yeah. Anyway,
I have to message you the second that they discover the new Pope.
I'm okay.
They release like the different smoke or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. The black smoke is that they haven't decided yet, and the white smoke is that they have.
And the purple smoke is that
This
you
is
have
like,
entered. You need to roll for initiative. You've entered combat zone.
oh my gosh.
Uh,
Okay. Turning
Yes.
back to Paper
yes. Yeah.
Mario.
Hmm.
Okay, so we're gonna move into kind of, it's a little bit similar to what we've done before with when we talk about books and everything. The first section we're gonna talk about, because this game does have music, but it's a little bit hard to contextualize in this sort of media and everything on a podcast with licensed material, especially since Nintendo are the worst people for this stuff. You
Yeah.
cannot, like, they don't release any other stuff on Spotify, and they like to take down YouTube channels like crazy if they even like doing that kind of stuff. So we're not going to
Sure.
mess with that, but we are going to talk about the world building. So,
I do have one
Robin,
note on the
oh,
music.
yes, actually, yeah, go for it.
So the original GameCube version had a different set of music than the new release, and that
Oh,
they like had like
interesting.
updated it and stuff like that. One of the first things that you can get though, when you go to the badge shop, you can buy this for 1 coin. That was another thing that's kind of unique about this particular RPG compared to others I've played. So there's like health, which is like very standard health points, H points, flower points, flower power,
That's
which
right.
those are for using special moves. So if you want to use like a normal move, jump, hammer are your two go-tos as Mario, and then each partner has a different set of moves.
Yeah.
Um, those are default, those are 0 flower point. If you want to do anything special that does extra damage or whatever, that would use flower points. And then the last one are badges, and badges are items that you can, like permanent items that you can equip that give you like boost as long as you are
Yeah.
wearing them. Um,
Hmm.
and every time you level up, you can pick one of those three to upgrade,
Yeah.
is how it works. Yeah. I'll talk more about the mechanics because I thought the way they did that was just beautiful.
Yeah.
But like one thing that stood out to me, so you can buy certain badges they're just 0 badge points, which is nice because you can equip as many as you want. And some of them are fun ones that like there's one for GameCube music that you can
Yeah.
equip that I
Oh,
I
that's
bought for
cool.
1 coin and immediately equipped it. And so all the music is back to the GameCube version,
That
which
is really
for
cool.
me it's highly it's definitely like early 2000s game music. Like it's
Yeah.
a look it up on YouTube because it doesn't sound like anything else. Like it's a very I can hear that music and be like, oh my God, that's Paper Mario. It has even that some of the instrumentation is highly
Yeah.
specific and feels very early 2000s. But I do remember being in
Mm.
Bogley Woods, which is the second place. And I remember running around in Bogley Woods, and I like to play games very, very in depth and like explore every little nook and cranny because this is also one of those games that rewards you for doing it, so it's very much worth it.
Yeah.
And I remember Nathan, my husband, sitting next to me, and at like different points he'd like get up and leave and come back or like whatever, as I'm just playing this game. And at one point he's like, I can't listen to this music another second. Bogley Woods music is like it's like I'm just gonna say weird little gnome music is the
Yeah.
best way. It has
Weird
a
little
very I
gnome
mean
music.
every place has a very different soundtrack that is very indicative of that place. And yeah, the one in Bogley Woods sounds like weird little gnome music, and it had never occurred to me how annoying that was until he pointed it out. So I wanted to just
I
I'm
love
excited.
that.
I'm going through the new version and I'm just about to start the second place. I've played the game multiple times, but like I'm gonna be unequipping the GameCube music to like check out the new Bogley Woods music to see if they made it not awful because I hope they didn't. I want it to be awful.
Yeah. Awful was iconic in this scenario.
Yeah.
Hey guys, Caitlin here. This episode ran a lot longer than we normally record, so we decided we were going to split this episode into 2 parts. The part you're listening to right now is part 1. Part 2 should be posted around the same time. That way, if you want to come back to it, listen to it a different time, it's up to you. But we just, at the end of the recording, realized we'd spent a lot of time talking. It's easy to get caught up with your friends, and we had a great time recording this episode. So check out part 2 right after this. Bye!